Judgment on the case involving businessman Alfred Agbashi Woyome adjourned to Wednesday, 30th April 2014. Ghana holds consultative forum on the Economic Partnership Agreement. On the foreign front, according to a new study, the strain of Ebola virus that has killed 121 people in West Africa may have been circulating there undetected for some time. Those are major stories for the hour, but these and more coming up on News Today. This is News Today with me, Kemini Nyamani Amano. In our first story, judgment on the case involving businessman Alfred Agbashi Woyome has been adjourned to Wednesday, 30th April 2014. The case is in regard to the receipt of 51.28 million cedis judgment debt paid Woyome. The presiding judge, His Lordship John Najet Nassam, explained that he was indisposed for 2 weeks, for which reason he could not complete his ruling on the accused submission of no case. Alfred Agbashi Woyome, in his submission of no case, praised the court to dismiss all the allegations leveled against him, including defrauding the state and the false pretense. The embattled National Democratic Congress financier Woyome, who is facing charges of defrauding by false pretenses and causing financial loss to the state, has had a team of 4 lawyers representing him in the trial that has been ongoing for nearly 2 years. Now, there seems to be no end to what has become known as the sad story. After Tuesday's reports which highlighted the desolation at the supposed deforestation zones of the Savannah Accelerated Development Authority, it turns out due process was not followed in the award of the 32.4 million Ghana cedi contract to ACI Construction Limited. The company, a subsidiary of the Agams Group, was handed the contract without going through any competitive bidding. The audit report on SADA has flagged it a violation of the procurement law and recommends sanctions against former SADA CEO Gilbert Idi. Manasseh Sore Awene has more.
In June 2012, SADA awarded ACI Construction Limited a contract to plant 5 million trees on 300 project locations in 5 regions. The contract was worth 32.4 million Ghana cedis and was for 1 year, subject to renewal. Former CEO of SADA, Gilbert Idi, explains why the company was chosen.
The information that was available to me from what I received was that they had been doing a similar thing on the coastal, Savannah area.
Where exactly?
I think Central Region or somewhere. I'm not too sure. Central Region. I have the document that quotes it.
That ACI Construction had undertaken tree planting before?
Yes. Yeah. And that one, they had been involved in mobilizing youth for youth employment. And then 2, they've been involved in activities relating to environmental protection. And then 3, that they've been involved in planting of trees.
Joynews checks, however, revealed that the company did not have any track record of successfully undertaking tree planting projects. ACI Construction Limited was registered in 2010 by Roland Agambire and Miriam Ajavon. Its authorized business, according to information at the Registrar General's Department, were roads and building construction, civil engineering, plumbing and electrical installation, as well as dealers in building materials. Joynews also secured a contract signed between ACI Construction and the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology for the Youth in Coastal Sanitation and Waste Management project. The 2-year contract was to be renewed based on satisfactory performance, but it wasn't. Some key stakeholders of SADA have expressed concerns about how SADA selected this company and other service providers. Here is Northern Regional Minister Alhaji Limuna Muhammad Muniru.
We don't limit it to just a few hands to take advantage. That is normally the policies, the problems we face. You start it very nicely, but you shroud it in some secrecy, and as if it's just a few privileged people. When that money could have been given to about 20 or 30 service providers, and the benefits will be all over. So this time they should open it and make it a bit competitive, so that if you want to be a service provider, you go through a very critical way of achieving or getting it, so that people are really correctly selected, not just nobody even knows how service providers were selected.
Former SADA CEO Gilbert Sedu Idi, however, defends the decision to use sole sourcing in selecting ACI construction.
The use of, sole sourcing. Because, for instance, if you had decided to go through competitive bidding, I'm sure that the first tree planting would have been sometime this year. The process of going through, bidding and all that is so long and
Is it
tedious.
how fast you do it or how well you do it that you are looking at here?
Both.
Okay, in this case, you've done it fast and
then you see
a failure.
Oh, it's not a failure.
The audit report says though the procurement law makes room for sole sourcing, the afforestation contract awarded to ACI Construction did not qualify under the law. It says the company did not have the capacity to execute the afforestation project, hence its failure. It recommends that management institute action to invoke sanctions against the former CEO, Alhaji Gilbert Idi, who signed the contract. Before I ended the interview, I asked Alhaji Idi what he would do differently if he were put in charge of SADA again. Surprisingly, his answer was different from his earlier defense of the contract.
There are certain things I'll do differently.
If you were in charge of SADA today?
Yeah, there are certain things I'll do differently.
What are some of them?
Like I'm telling you, the whole process of choosing a technical service provider and using sole sourcing, I'll frown on it. That's number one. Then, which other one comes up immediately? Yeah, as far as the tree planting process is concerned, that is the biggest problem. Everything about the tree planting process is all right, except that people have questions about the person you have chosen. Not because you have chosen him, but there are question marks about him which you didn't know and which you didn't factor in at the time you were taking that decision.
Joy News has learned that SADA has contracted UDS to count the trees and report on the survival rate. It is not clear what percentage they will put out, but what is clear is that the 32.4 million Ghana cedis has worsened the vegetation cover of most of the SADA afforestation project locations. For Joy News, Manasseh Azore Arene reporting.
From one sad story to the other, the Economic and Organized Crimes Office has begun investigations into how the Energy Minister Emmanuel Kofi-Buah's signature was allegedly forged by a Canadian exploration firm. The firm allegedly forged the minister's signature to lay claim over a piece of oil-rich area offshore south of the Cape 3 points in the western region. The Energy Ministry referred the matter to IOCO last week. We are joined over the telephone by Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Vitus Azim. Thank you very much, Vitus, for joining us here on News Today. Hello, Vitus. Well, I think we have lost Vitus over the phone, but we'll get in touch with him. And hello, Vitus. Hello, Vitus.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us here on News Today.
You're welcome.
What are your views on a happening like this, a forged signature of Energy Minister by a Canadian oil firm?
Well, I think this is a very serious case if it is actually the situation. And it will probably require that some serious investigation is done within the Ministry of Energy. Because this has the potential of an insider probably getting involved, and without any investigation, we cannot just say that it's a hoax.
And so it raises questions about security, confidentiality within the Energy Ministry itself.
Well, I think that's a problem not only within the ministry, but Ministry of Energy, but in a general problem, especially with these days when you have electronic signatures. People can always take advantage of them. People can cut and paste. People are very, very skilled in doing these things. So it probably means that we need to find a more secure way of keeping our records and our signatures such that it cannot easily be copied. But these things happen, not just in the means of energy alone. And since it is an international body, probably the Interpol might have to be involved if the preliminary investigation show that there's need for more serious investigation into this.
I see. Thank you very much, Vitus. Vitus Azim is Executive Director for the Ghana Integrity Initiative. We'll try and get in touch with Iyoko boss and Mote Akpaji and find out exactly what we should expect from this investigation. Let's move on to something else. And the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, has decided to stay its intention to withdraw its services until the expiration of the negotiation period. This follows UTAG's meeting with the National Labour Commission and representatives of government, which included the Minister of Education and his deputy in charge, her deputy rather, in charge of tertiary education. The Executive Secretary of the National Council for Tertiary Education on 16th April 2014. The meeting was on the issue of the withdrawal of his services with respect to the payment of the book and research allowances by government. UTAG says it has decided to respect the directive by the NLC to both parties concerned to negotiate and report to the Commission on May 14, 2014. Hundreds of children in Old Fadama here in Accra are out of school because the slum, home to over 100,000 people, has no public school. Privately owned schools run in makeshift structures are springing up in the community to cater for the vulnerable children. Joynews' Justice Baidu visited one of these schools and sent in this report.
Inside Old Fadama, Ghana's largest slum, pupils march to class to begin the day's work. Over 150 of these children study in this 30 by 25 feet kiosk, which during the day is called the Blessed Complex Preparatory School. After school, however, it becomes a video game and football viewing center, which means on days when there is a big game, the classroom has to be emptied early enough for the setup to begin.
There are certain things that we may need to survive. One of them is what? Food. You all agree with me. How many of you did not eat this morning? Let me see. How many of you did not eat this morning? Everybody has eaten. What did we eat this morning? Rice. What did we eat this morning? Rice.
There is unbearable heat as children from creche to class 3 aged between 2 and 10 years learn in this cramped structure together.
Recent figures put people living in this community to well over 100,000. But these people living here have no access to basic amenities like health and education. This is because city authorities continue to regard settlers here as illegal.
The closest public school is 5 kilometers away. Children who are able to make it through the makeshift school end up there after class 3. 32-year-old Saka Mohammed set up the Blessed Complex School 6 years ago. He says those who make it into his school can count themselves lucky, the inadequacies notwithstanding. He, however, cannot say same for the thousands others who live in the slum without access to any formal education at all.
The people in this community are financially poor. They cannot help their children to attend other private schools. So because of that, the condition here is very, very hard. So we thought of it that why not putting up something like this so that we can help the poor and needy children in this community.
Mariama Mohammed is 13 and has never been to school in her entire life at Old Fadama. She now prepares porridge for sale for a commission. Many of her peers are in the same situation and in most instances find themselves having to fend their babies too. Saka says government's decision to deny the community development project in order not to encourage settlement is affecting the lives of the people.
Community, we are lack of social amenities in this community. as you can see, hospital, schools. So the community have to bring up all that they can just to support their people. That is all. Other than that, we will suffer.
It is not clear when help would finally arrive for these children, but they keep hope alive. Some manna will fall soon.
In Ghana, the essential public health function of the laboratory are not clearly defined and streamlined in the Health Ministry's program. Also, the absence of a national laboratory policy and strategic planning mechanism is hampering the delivery of quality medical laboratory services. Upper East Regional Chairman of the Ghana Association of Biomedical Laboratory Scientists, Abudu Rahmani, was speaking at an event to mark International Biomedical Laboratory Science Day at Bogotanga on Tuesday. Albert Sori has the rest.
The International Biomedical Laboratory Science Day was marked with a lecture centered on the theme, Medical Labs Are Vital. The event was attended by laboratory practitioners, nurses, midwives, and some biomedical laboratory science students of the University for Development Studies in Navrongo. The Upper East Chairman of the Ghana Association of Biomedical Laboratory Scientists, Abudu Rahmani, reading a speech on behalf of the national chairman, emphasized the importance of quality medical laboratory services.
The consequence of a poor laboratory service manifested in the assurance of wrong laboratory reports or delayed services could also result in a total loss in trust in the healthcare system and even death of patients. One cannot imagine the consequence of releasing a wrong paternity test report, effect on integrity of a family, and the traumatic moment experienced by such families.
He touched on things that hamper the delivery of high-quality medical laboratory services in Ghana's health sector.
Absence of a national laboratory policy and strategy planning mechanism affecting the laboratory management at all levels of healthcare delivery system. Ineffective laboratory network to make use of national laboratory network and international networks. Weak systems to ensure quality testing and quick turnaround times for test results. Lack of fully operational mechanism for regulation of practice and validation of laboratory devices and new technologies. Low capacity of conducting priority laboratory research, just to mention a few.
It's been over a month after the closure of the Adome Bridge. Have you wondered what's become of it? I have the scoop when I return. I'm glad you stayed on here on News Today. Now, the Adome Bridge was on March 10, 2014, closed to vehicular traffic for a major rehabilitation works to commence. The bridge, which caters for travelers on the eastern corridor of the Volta region, is expected to be completed in 2 years, barring unforeseen circumstances. Vehicles from Accra to Ho and vice versa are crossing the Volta Lake at Senchi to Old Accra and continue to Japon. It's been over a month since the closure, and I'm sure you recall the back and forth after the closure. And now my colleague Gifty Ando Apia has visited the ferry site, and she joins me over the telephone for a quick update on the situation. Hello, Gifty. Hello, Gifty. I think I have lost Gifty over the telephone, but we will bring you an update on the situation as we understand that travelers have had to use the banks of the bank of the river at Senchi as places of convenience because there are inadequate toilet facilities at the ferry point at Senchi. Sad. But give us the full scoop in the course of the bulletin. Let's move on to something else now. The structure of small business coupled with the poor bookkeeping practices is hindering banks from granting them credit. According to the executive manager of the First Capital Plus, some banks have shifted focus from SMEs, although they were established solely to help these small enterprises. I'll show you that story. But let's go to Senchi now as Gifty Ando Apia is back over the telephone. Hello, Gifty.
Hello, Kemini.
I'm not sure it was a pleasant sight for you to be at Senchi. As I understand that people have had to use the bank of the river at that point as places of convenience. Tell us what you have observed, though.
Well, I have not seen anything that suggests that people have used the place, banks of the river as places of convenience. What I've seen, though, there's been, well, there is a town there are quite a few of small towns on the bank. So that is what I can report. But I spoke to some of the residents, and what they're telling me is that they have provided places of convenience for passengers. So I think the time when there was no places of convenience was when, at the very beginning stages, you know, when things had to be put in place. And so I think the challenge was then. But as I speak with you now, I cannot confirm.
And so it has changed now, you'd say?
I think so. Per what I spoke to, per what some of the residents told me, and what I have seen, I have not seen any such thing.
Beyond sanitation, tell us about movement at Senchi.
Well, as I speak with you now, I came to look at the progress of work at on the Adome Bridge.
Right.
You know that bridge has been under renovation. That has been my primary focus since I got here. I am planning to go to the ferry site and see the movement there as well. But for now, my focus has been renovation works on the Adome Bridge. And so I went there, spoke to the project manager, and he took me around, telling me about the progress of work. I saw that some of the decks on the bridge are being removed. And as he explains, it has to be you remove it and then you replace it. So it's like you take something out, you replace it. It's a very gradual process. So bits and pieces of the decks of the Adome Bridge are being taken out, and then they have replacements which are being put there. So far, that's what has been going on the bridge.
You'd say work has been going on smoothly?
I would say, I mean, with what it was a bit scary for me because to stand in the middle of the bridge that is almost parted was quite scary because I don't know how to swim, and so it was quite scary. But as he explained to me, work is ongoing smoothly, and all things being equal, without any unforeseen circumstances, as they usually say, they should hit their target.
It's Easter, and tell us about traffic that part of town. How are people traveling across town to celebrate the Easter season?
Well, Kevin, as I spoke to you earlier on, I have not been to the ferry site yet, but there's this private company that moves people from across the bridge, and they are not available. Authorities of that company are not available to speak to us, but I see movement. I see people moving. I've been there for just a few minutes, but I can count that. Like more than 50 people have moved to and fro this little river here.
Right, Gifty, we'll leave our conversation here for now. Thank you very much. Gifty Ando Apia joined us from the Adome Bridge area where construction works, she tells us, is going on smoothly. Now let's move on to something else now, and the structure of small business coupled with their poor bookkeeping practices is hindering banks from granting them credit. According to the executive manager of First Capital Plus, some banks have shifted focus from SMEs, although they were established solely to help these small enterprises.
To address the difficulties SMEs face in accessing credit, a number of financial institutions sprang up, mainly to assist small businesses. However, these institutions are gradually drifting from granting loans to SMEs to financing large corporate organizations. According to the executive manager of First Capital Plus Bank, Dr. Charles Akwete, the poor corporate governance structure of these businesses remains a disincentive for them.
The challenge with small business is that most of them are not ready. People jump into doing business simply because others are doing it. And they are not ready to stick to one business. They move from one to the other. What they are doing now is what we call try and error. Let me just do anything because I see a colleague or friend doing it and the person is making money. So then they jump into it. So most of them are just moving their funds away And in the end, they burn their fingers and they cause a lot of harm to the banks and other financial institutions. The banks are focused on those that are growing, because no bank will want to go into areas where the people are not serious. And that is really will affect those who are starting startups and those who do not have proper structures in place. When it happens in that way, then those ones.
He advised the Reference Bureau to up their business to make information more credible and dependable as basis for credit approval.
They are playing a major role, except that they need to up their game and do a little bit more. In terms of records that they keep, it is what the banks provide, that is what they have. But they need to do a little more so that whoever wants to look out for them will have to get the information from them. The information should be credible, reliable, and dependable. What government should do is to increase the contribution of Exim guarantee, provide a much bigger guarantee for corporate institutions, for associations like AGI, give a blanket collateral to AGI. We can only help them if they help themselves. They must be truthful. They should stop diverting their funds, and they should stick to what the good business practices are.
Dr. Charles Akwete also cautioned SMEs to use the funds they receive judiciously in order to gain government's financial support.
2015 is the new target date for the introduction of the West Africa Common Currency ECO and full realization of monetary zone and partial currency integration through the West African Monetary Zone. The new target date is to initially introduce the ECO in the 4 Anglophone countries, that is Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone and the Gambia, and also in Guinea by 2015, and the rest of West Africa sub-region by 2020. The West African Monetary Zone member countries Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Nigeria, Sierra Leone initially led the plan to have a single currency in 2000 following the Accra Declaration and the Bamako Accord in 2000. The 4 primary criteria to be achieved by each member country are a single-digit inflation rate at the end of each year, fiscal deficit of no more than 4% of GDP, a central bank deficit financing of no more than 10% of the previous year's tax revenues, and gross external reserves that can give import cover for a minimum of 3 months now. Can we achieve that? I have Sonny Ugo. Sonny Ugo is ECOWAS Communications Director over the telephone. Thank you very much, Sonny, for joining us here on News Today.
Thank you.
So, Sonny, with the kind of criteria we need to be able to have the single currency, let's say Ghana, for instance, our inflation is now 14.5, our deficit is 12% of GDP. Is this achievable?
Come again?
I'm asking, is this ECO, the deadline for, is the 2015 deadline achievable for the ECO, the common currency?
As far as I can say, from where I stand, yes. The difficulty, not just with Ghana being able to meet the conditions, the prior conditions under the convergence criteria, not just in Ghana, but also among the countries of the West African Community Zone, is the reason why heads of state set up what they call a presidential task force on the monetary cooperation program, coordinated by President of Ghana and Niger, which have been who have been playing an oversight role to see how they can have, at the highest level possible, to push this process. And at the last 44th Atani Summit of Heads of State and Government in Yamoussoukro, they endorsed a graduated approach for achieving this monetary union by 2020. And then the commission, that is the ECOWAS Commission, the president of the commission was asked to work with all the relevant regional institutions, the WAMI, for example, and then the Awama in Sierra Leone, to draw up a detailed roadmap on the things that need to be done in order to satisfy the agreed deadline for achieving this 2015 date.
And Sonny, you feel we can take off come 2015, after we've postponed this about twice already, with the kind of challenges individual countries are facing?
Why not? You see, there are two approaches. We prefer to have a convergence of our economy on as part of the processes that we have to achieve the single currency. Don't forget, I mean, single currencies in some other clients didn't need to satisfy all those criteria. All you needed to do was have a political will to do it and then get on with it. But we felt that it is much more economically viable to these routes that we are going. And that is the purpose of this President Task Force, like I said, of the President Mahama of Ghana and President Yusufu of Niger, who are leading that process to make sure that whatever problems there are in meeting in addressing the challenges that are confronting that we are confronted with in meeting compliance, whatever problems there are, these two presidents will lead that process to make sure that at the highest level possible we address those problems because we appreciate the value of a single currency for West Africa. Don't forget, I mean, this process of under the ECOWAS Monetary Cooperation Program, this process has been running since 1978. What you had in 1999 in the Accra Declaration was for us to see how we can work together
so Sonny,
to track that process for 1978.
Sonny, from now till 2015, what are we going to see in preparation towards the takeoff?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we have, because we understand the necessity of it, heads of state have in their wisdom decided to appoint two of them to steer this process, to make sure it is fast-tracked. So that whatever challenges we are confronted with can be dealt with much more expeditiously, so that we can achieve that. So let us not be cynical about this. Let us be open-minded about it and allow the heads of state working with the commission and the institutions that are involved to work towards that objective. We believe it is feasible. We believe it is possible.
Right.
Member states demonstrate the political will.
Granted,
there's evidence.
Granted it is. I mean, it will take off 2015. How will the rollout take place? The rollout where member countries will now start using this new currency?
Yes. The way it is now, as we agree on this, I just told you that at the last summit, which was last month in Yamoussoukro, it was agreed that we should have a detailed roadmap. When that has happened, then we will now be able to talk about the processes that will lead to the emergence and the use of this single currency. We already have the name of this second currency. We already have the name. These processes that will lead us to it, what are the milestones? Then we can have activities around those milestones that will lead us to the rollout. So let us not go to the end first. Let us have the processes. That's what heads of state have started in Yamoussoukro. Until we have seen this roadmap, it is not possible for us to preempt what the nature of the rollout.
I see. Thank you very much, Sonny. Sonny Ugo is Communications Director with ECOWAS. Now, Ivory Coast Prime Minister Daniel Kablan-Duncan says his country is on track to reach double-digit economic growth this year and become an emerging market by 2020. He says government has worked hard to restore security and investor confidence following 2010's post-election violence that killed 3,000 people. Ivory Coast is best known as the world's largest producer of cocoa beans, but it also is a major producer of coffee beans, cashew nuts, palm oil and rubber. And it's working to expand its mining, oil and gas sectors. Prime Minister Duncan said Ivory Coast has a favorable business climate and it's a gateway to West Africa. The Obama administration has again warned Beijing that it is concerned about the recent drop in China's currency, calling it significantly undervalued and saying it is watching the value of the yuan closely. In a semi-annual report to Congress, the U.S. Treasury stopped short of declaring China a currency manipulator, but singled it out among large U.S. trading partners for its currency practices. The report noted that China's yuan, also known as the renminbi or RMB, rose in value last year, but it said the increase was too slow and did not go far enough. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen says inflation is expected to rise slowly from current levels to the U.S. Central Bank's 2% target rate. In her first major policy speech, Yellen told the Economic Club of New York the low rate of inflation appears due to temporary influences such as the deceleration in consumer energy prices. She said longer-run inflation expectations, though, have remained steady. Janet Yellen said the Fed is not likely to raise interest rates until its inflation and unemployment goals are reached. That's it for business. I will bring you some sports news after this. You're welcome back. Let's start off with some fish throwing action. And Bukom Banku and Haiti Powers have assured boxing fans that there will no longer be any hitches as the countdown to May 16 begins for their epic fight, codenamed Judgment Night. The two boxers gave their words at a press conference at the Accra Sports Stadium.
The battle lines have been drawn. And come May 16 at the Accra Sports Stadium, the much-awaited boxing encounter between Brian Makamoko, alias Bukom Banku, and Michael Okain, alias Ayite Powers, will finally come alive after both boxers gave assurance of their commitment. The two boxers gave their words at a press conference this morning at the Accra Sports Stadium organized by Box Office Sports Promotions under the auspices of the Ghana Boxing Authority as well as DSTV Super Sports. Broadcast sponsors who have donated a modern boxing ring for the mega fight. Ayite Powers retreated his desire to fight Bukom Banku.
Victory is mine. I'm going to knock this guy 6 rounds. That's it. I know this guy. This guy is coming to throw slapping, and I'm going to give him correct punch, and he's going to be down. That's it.
And he got a daring response from eternal rival Bukom Banku.
I'm also training her to come and stop Ayite Powers because Ayite Powers is not my class. Always he's shouting.
GBA Chief Lawyer Peter Zwen has expressed delight that all issues have been settled and the fight is coming on, and minds no words when describing the essence of the non-title cruiserweight bout between Banku and Powers.
I must say that myself and other members of the board are very relieved about the turn of events.
Meanwhile, Alex Intia Mwabwache, CEO of the Box Office Sports Promotions, has assured fight fans who already bought tickets with the April 18 date that it will still be valid, even though the fight date is now May 16.
We've sold some tickets with the 18th of April reading on it as the date. The tickets that has been bought, they are still valid, and still we have some of that stock.
Ticket prices range from 100 Ghana cedis for VVIP, 50 Ghana cedis for VIP, and 10 Ghana cedis for popular stand.
I like those two. Did you see that? Well, let's get into some soccer now. Countdown to Brazil, and Ghana coach James Kwesi Appiah says he will name his provisional 30-man squad on May 13 as the Black Stars prepare to make their third successive World Cup appearance in Brazil. Appiah made history as the first Ghanaian coach to qualify and guide the Black Stars to the country's third successive World Cup appearance later this June. He recently returned from Ideas Sharing Tour of English club Liverpool with his technical team staff and says May 13 is the D-Day. The 54-year-old ex-Ghana skipper took the opportunity to monitor and visit some of the national team players at their clubs. The 30-man provisional squad will begin a non-residential campaign in Accra from May 22. They will then plane to the Netherlands 3 days later and face the Dutch national team in a friendly on 31st May at the Feyenoord Stadium. Ghanaian musicians resort to the medium to promote their works. Some individuals are riding on the popularity of these artists to also become popular. So what is driving the boom in parody videos? Showbiz has been seeking some answers.
The advancement of technology has made it a lot more easier for just anybody who so wishes to become popular. A mobile phone with a camera is all one needs at a time to put anything out there on social media. And people are really taking advantage of this ease. Songs produced by some Ghanaian musicians pop up on social media bearing the tag official music video, when in actual fact they are parody videos. Take this video, which is supposed to be for Castro and Sarkodie's song Adonai. You probably enjoyed it, right? Well, the reality is, it is not the original video for the song. It was created by Nana Say, an IT technician. But why?
Yeah, well, I like the lyrics of the song, honestly. It's a song I can listen to like 20 times in a day, because it's praising God, it's making you understand that you can't do anything without God, and that hallelujah and praise be to God. So that's where it comes from. It's a self-motivated move. It's not like they called me to do it or someone told me to do it. I stood up one day and then I just could feel the song in my head. I was really thinking about it. I said, why don't I do a dance to it so people can really understand how I relate to the song? So if you watch the video, the mannerisms in there shows I was really into the song.
This Adonai video is not the only parody video online. There are lots more, including this one for Joey B's controversial hit song Tonga. Some argue the creators of these videos infringe on the right of the owners of the songs. But sources at Copyright Office tells Showbiz it is not exactly a big deal, especially if the artists do not complain. So for now, it appears to be a win-win situation for both parties.
A recap of our headlines. Judgment on the case involving businessman Alfred Agbeshi Woyome adjourned to Wednesday, 30th April 2014. Ghana holds consultative forum on the Economic Partnership Agreement. On the foreign front, according to a new study, the strain of Ebola virus that has killed 121 people in West Africa may have been circulating there undetected for some time. And well, thank you very much for staying through the hour or because of News Today. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana. I'll see you tomorrow.